Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. I'm Edward, and today I want to chat a little bit about keeping ourselves safe in the lifestyle. And the lifestyle of DS has a lot of different acronyms in it, all sorts of them meaning anything and everything. But when it comes to our safety, especially when it comes to enjoying the playful side or play of DS, there are some acronyms, and those acronyms correspond to methods and thoughts on how to stay safe while enjoying the lifestyle. So today, for this just pre-Christmas podcast, um, hopefully there will be a gift under your kinky tree of some safety, or at least understanding the methods that many people practice and use in the lifestyle to stay safe. It's especially important because the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom has found that one person out of every five who enters into BDSM, the DS world, even just enjoying some kinky coitus, those people will report that one out of every five within their first 5 years of exploring things will have their consent violated. This is not just submissives. This is not just switches. This is not dominance. This is everyone. So safety, it is your responsibility, and bad things can happen to good people, including yourself. It's very easy to think that nothing bad is going to happen to me. I'm a smart person, I'm a dominant, I'm a male, whatever. Or so many people have excuses, and just that simple human natured belief that it's not going to happen to me. So it's important to realize that, it can happen to you. So staying safe is definitely everyone's own personal responsibility. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The other thing that goes along with that, believe it or not, in this world where we research everything, there is a medical journal, and it is the Journal of Sexual Medicine, which is put out and on by a team of doctors. And somehow, kinky related things came to mind for them. They did some research and they found that through their studies, 50% of people have fantasies involving DS play. Not necessarily entering the DS lifestyle, but incorporating components of play into their sex lives. So the lifestyle really does touch a heck of a lot more people than what it seems to on the surface. And granted, the percentage of people that actually follow through on those is quite a bit lower. I mean, just kind of scroll along through the blogs or whatever lifestyle related websites you like. And you'll find that there are a lot of people who are exploring fantasies, talking about fantasies, but that's where it stops. They're never going to actually kind of cross the river in enter the world of where their fantasies come to life. But it's fascinating to know that so many people do have these thoughts. So it's kind of reassuring in a way that as kinky people, we're not perhaps as alone as we think we are. And also, it's important to keep that in mind when you're getting some negative judgment or feedback. If you happen to share a desire with a partner or just a friend or somebody, and they, have all sorts of retorts on why you're, for example, sick or twisted or whatever words you've probably heard before if you've expressed your desires to somebody who maybe isn't on the same page. That maybe they actually are on the same page and they just can't admit it. The other thing that the doctors explored in the Journal of Sexual Medicine in the article that was specific to BDSM, and it was kind of shocking to me. And that is roughly 13.5%. So we can either call it 13 or 14. Since I'm a goalie in ice hockey. That means I have some unique superstitions. Same with a past hobby of racing stock cars. So there are some unique superstitions that come involved. And it's not the stock car one that has the voodoo of uh, of the number 13, but the hockey one definitely has some bad juju associated with it for me. So we're going to call it 14%, just to put my little bit of psychosis in that area to rest. So we'll call it 14%, which is surprisingly high, and that's also taking into account that these folks are actually sharing this with doctors, because that was one of the other amazing things that they found, which I guess it really isn't amazing. It's probably to be expected that many people who have kink-related injuries are not going to necessarily be forthcoming with their practitioner of how they receive them. And when they talked injuries, they ran the gamut from, having rug burns on the knees to, more drastic, um, more drastic and more horrific injuries. So yeah, it runs the gamut, but keeping yourself safe, it's important so you don't have an injury, or you don't have your consent violated. So the first thing that we need to chat about, that's consistent through all the different manners and acronyms of keeping ourselves safe, is consent. Consent, consent, consent. Always important, always there. And the thing about consent, there's a great acronym for it, and it's fries. And when I say fries, just like going to McDonald's and them saying, "Would you like fries with that?" So for fries, the F stands for it's freely given, which simply just means that there's no coercion, there's no bullying involved. Um, Everybody who is engaging in the activity has freely consented. There is no crap like, if you are a real submissive or a real dominant, you would do this with me. Or another popular way to kind of coerce things. Well, you did it with your past sub, and I want you to do it with me. Or you can flip that around. You did it with your past dom, or your past dom, and you did this for your past dom, and I want you to do it for me. However that works, and it's not just dominants who coerce. Submissives do it too, and I'd imagine switches as well. So there's no coercion. It's freely given. The next, the R, it's revocable. At any point in time, anybody engaging can say, "Hey, stop, we're done." Or, "I know I consented to this earlier, but I'm not now." Often, when we revoke consent in the lifestyle, it revolves around um, saying a safe word, using a safe gesture. It's stopping things. The E is for enthusiastic. Consent must be enthusiastically given. If you're not 100% excited to take on the project, don't. And if you're asking for consent and the person consents, but they don't seem to be excited, then it's a no. Easy way to remember it. If it's not a heck yes, I want to do it, it's a heck no. So the S is for specific. And by specific, that means during the negotiation period, you are expressing exactly what can happen, what may happen, and what will not happen. And if something wasn't specifically consented, it's a no go. Great simple way to remember this. You consent to make out with someone, but just because you're consenting to make out, it does not consent to wandering hands, or it doesn't consent to the makeout session evolving into sex. Um, a common consent violation in the lifestyle is where a dominant will get the proper consent to, say, give a bare bottom spanking. However, the consent is violated when that dominant has assumed that the consent also includes touching of private parts while they're giving the spanking. It does not, because that was not discussed. There was no consent given. So that would be a consent violation because it was not specific. So there's that. Now, when it comes to the lifestyle, there are kind of four different ways of looking at methods to keep ourselves safe. The first one is often called um, S.S.C. And what that stands for is safe, sane, and consensual. This is probably the most popular acronym out there. Most people will say that they subscribe to S.S.C. when it comes to how they practice their kinks. Next is called R.A.C.K, and this stands for Risk Aware Consensual Kink. And this evolved out of the popularity of S.S.C. And then we have the new kid on the block. And it's one of those rare times when you could possibly say it's good to be a prick. And what PRIC stands for is personal responsibility, informed, consensual kink. Another twist, some other people call it um, personal responsibility and consensual kink. And then finally, we come to the four C's of kink. And this one is typically more popular. You'll find this in a lot of MS, which means master slave dynamics. And it's the four C's of caring, communication, consent, and caution. So let's kick it off with talking about the most popular way and the fact that if you are new to the lifestyle, this is probably where you're going to first land as you start to actually explore and perhaps get hands on with the lifestyle. Um, Safe, sane, and consensual actually came out of, believe it or not, a July 4th celebration. Um, in discussing a July 4th celebration somewhere, somebody suggested that everyone have a safe and sane 4th. And as we all know, the internet has things go viral, blow up, and go in unique directions. And that's what happened here. Um, the lifestyle started adopting safe, sane, and they added consensual, and it snowballed, and it became a well-known and good method to keep everyone safe. Um, so let's talk about what it actually means. I mean, what does it mean to be safe? Uh, Everybody kind of has a little different opinion of what it means to be safe. Um, and safe basically means that you care for the person you're playing with, no matter how passionate or intense things are. You are taking all the possible steps you can to alleviate the hazards. And it also means that everyone engaged in the play or playing has done their own research and understands the risk, as well as how things are to be done both safely and properly to mitigate those risks. Next comes the word that causes probably the most debate on this theory, and that is sane. I mean, who decides what's sane? I mean, I am a person who believes that everybody in their lifetime is going to have at least once, if not more than that, a period of time where they struggle with their mental health. So if you have struggles with your mental health, does that mean you can't practice this because, the big book that decides what is a sane person and what is not a sane person and who needs professional help, um, says that you are, in need of help. Well, then are you sane? Is there a committee somewhere of lifestyle people that meets, every 2 years, every 5 years, and says, okay, here's what we call sane in the lifestyle? Those things don't happen. So what sane really means is self-control, that the people engaging in the play will practice self-control. That when the endorphins are kind of rushing and raging and everybody's feeling good, because that's the whole point of engaging in it, is to feel good, that there is going to be self-control involved. So that's really what sane breaks down to. Now, the other thing is that a lot of times people will use the acronym safe, sane, consensual as a way to yuck on somebody else's yum in the lifestyle, meaning something that they don't care for, they will classify as unsafe or and therefore it's a bad thing. So sometimes safe, sane, and consensual gets used as a way to yuck on other people's yums or as a way to put down somebody who perhaps practices the lifestyle in a more intense manner. So it's it's a great thing, except you have to understand that sane doesn't actually refer to your mental health, but it's more revolving around self-control. Um, and the other thing with SEC or SSC is that it typically will put the onus of keeping things safe on the more experienced partner, which is often the dominant partner, or just sometimes even the dominant partner. It's their absolute responsibility to keep the play safe, rather than in a way it minimizes the lesser experienced or the submissive's role or culpability in accepting the risk, which is not necessarily a good thing. So once S.S.C. got out there, got rolling, of course, there were people who disagreed with that approach, which brought about the appearance of R.A.C.K, the risk aware consensual kink method. So the R.A.C.K method of play became kind of the response to S.S.C. So before we get into R.A.C.K, it's time to take a short break, and we'll be right back after the message, and we'll all get on the R.A.C.K and hopefully some not in some torture chamber in medieval France, but we'll talk about R.A.C.K and kink after the break. All right, welcome back to Under My Christmas Tree. At least that's where I'm recording this podcast is under the tree. It's kind of motivational and calming, and just it's a great little environment here. So welcome back to Under My Tree, and we are now going to chat about R.A.C.K, risk-aware consensual kink. Once again, this grew out of the movement that took place when that Fourth of July saying the safe and sane fourth became safe, sane, and consensual. The R.A.C.K people who support R.A.C.K felt that they were kind of marginalized because some of their kinks might be edgier or more intense and viewed safe, sane, consensual as being derogatory of their kinks. Plus, some people who put forth and adopted the R.A.C.K theory in the early days of it also felt that the use of sane was very much was kind of derogatory towards mental health and they didn't care for it. So the R.A.C.K concept came up, and the people who practice R.A.C.K will tell you that nothing in life is safe. Uh, Taking a road trip, not safe. You could end up in a car accident. And, odds are, if you haven't, you will be involved in a car accident. Um, Walking down the sidewalk is not 100% safe. There is nothing in life that is safe. So the folks who follow the R.A.C principle are very much aware of the risk, and perhaps they would tell you maybe more open about about the risk that comes with it. An example that's out there would be, for example, breath play would be something that many who are devotees of safe, sane, and consensual um, would say is too risky, um, and would put you in, if that's something you did, into the category of of R.A.C.K. And really, breath play can be anything from just putting your hands on your partner's neck while you're playing to more intense of actually, limiting airflow. But that is a kink that a lot of people have. Um, and it's one of those kinks that if you are somebody who says that they support safe, sane, and consensual, many people in that realm would say, nope, you can't be here because of that. Um, that's not right or wrong. It's just kind of how the debate flows within the lifestyle. So, R.A.C.K is more about comprehending the risk. Everybody comprehends, understands, has done their homework, knows the risk, and finding the people who are playing their comfort zone, negotiating that comfort zone, consenting to that comfort zone, and then engaging in play there. As always, with all of these, consent is there. It's always there. It's always a huge part, no matter whichever way you like to engage in things. Consent is always key. Um, and the rack also tends to be something that, as a relationship grows, trust grows, and you are in a long-term relationship with a lifestyle person, um, play will, even if you started out strictly, doing safe, sane, and consensual, rack type activities in play sort of becomes, it happens more and more. It's because as the relationship grows, we've said the trust grows, consent for activities has been negotiated, confirmed, you know, fried, refried, the consent is there. For example, in a loving long-term partnership, it's very easy for, say, a submissive to be bratty or just be somebody who classifies as a brat that enjoys, acting out for their dominant to get their dominant's attention, or wants a spanking, so they act a little bratty to get their spanking. And in situations like that, in a long-term partnership, things will progress to where the the D type does not need to sit down and have the consent conversation prior to pulling their submissive over their knee and spanking them. So, in a way, as a relationship grows, components of R.A.C.K will kind of grow with it typically. So, while R.A.C definitely has people that are very much for it, very much against it. I can remember a blog post a while ago on my blog, and somewhere I had just mentioned the different kind of methods and acronyms, and a few people had responded that about how the evil ways of those who practice risk-aware consensual kink, and we really need to not be so judgmental, especially since when you find yourself in a partnership, it is very possible and probable that the manner in which you practice it will kind of become a little bit potentially more rack-like than the S.S.C method. So that's something to keep in mind, and no matter how you practice your kinks, don't stigmatize somebody who practices them differently, as long as they're doing so in a safe manner that works for them. Like S.S.C, like R.A.C, because all are prioritizing consent. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the new kid on the block. This is not a flashback to a '90s boy band, but um, I think only in kink can it be said that it's a good thing to be a prick. And what PRIC stands for is personal responsibility informed consensual kink. Another definition that's a little different, but is out there, and that is personal responsibility in consensual kink. Once again, just like the other two, consent, it's imperative, it's, super important. We can't stress consent enough. But what prick really does is it takes the onus off the dominant or experienced partner when it comes to keeping everyone involved safe. S.S.C, typically that is on the dominant or the experienced partner. Um, what practitioners of PRIC will tell you is that everyone is equally responsible for their own safety. No one is more or less responsible than the individual. It's all up to each person to keep themselves safe. Um, so prick really means everyone is equal in the quest to keep things safe. It is relatively new. It is something that when most discussions happen around consent and safety in the lifestyle, you'll see S.S.C, you'll see R.A.C.K, and more CRIC is getting talked about, but it's still newer, and so there's less people who identify as DS pricks. But I think the personal responsibility is a great thing, and especially that it puts everyone, rightly or wrongly, but it puts everyone on a level playing field when it comes to responsibility because it is up to the individual to keep themselves safe. So in that regards, I think it's a wonderful thing. The final one is also something that you probably don't hear a lot about, and that's the 4 C's of kink. The 4 C's are caring, communication, consent, and caution. Now, typically, where you will find these 4 C's are in people who are in a master slave type of lifestyle relationship. Um, Before we get into the C's a little bit more, there needs to be a warning because many people who explore the lifestyle online will come in contact with people online who have taken the title of master. And this is, in the online world, a huge red flag. It should be. There are the canons and the traditions and etiquette of BDSM and DS really hold that there's 2 ways to be a master in the lifestyle. First is to have a submissive partner who identifies in your relationship as your slave, and these people are partnered. So in that context, with the properly, a proper partnership, absolutely fine to use the title of master because that's how it is in the relationship. And the other way, very less common, and with the lifestyle becoming driven a lot more online than in person, um, but the in person communities will still kind of give the title of master as an honor to members of their communities who have mastered or learned and taught a specific skill. For example, rope bondage. That might be something that an individual is incredibly skilled and talented with, and because of their skill, their talent, and their teaching, the community has decided to refer to them with the title of master. But online, so many people take master, and it's a red flag because they obviously haven't done their homework, so they don't know when it is properly used because there's so many masters online looking for submissives. Well, if you're looking for a submissive, you're not poly and you're single, you can't be a master. So it typically falls when you see it. It typically comes to a newer D type, an undereducated dominant, or somebody who is just looking for kinky thrills. So I hope that when you see the title of Master Online, it'll be a red flag. So, anyways, got a little sidetracked with the red flag talk there. But getting back to the four C's, the first is caring. And this does not necessarily mean that you're in a relationship with the person that you are engaging with in the realm of play, but it just means that you are a good human being and you care about the other person and their best interest. So, yes, it can mean that you're in a partnership and you love your partner and you care for them, but more than anything, it simply means that you care for other humans. And because you care for other humans, you are going to care about keeping them safe during play. Next is communication, which is also important because you need to communicate, you need to negotiate before you play with somebody, you need to communicate with safe words or safe gestures, possibly. And when it comes to after you've played with somebody, you need to have a communication, kind of a debriefing. What happened during play, what worked, what didn't work, what you would like to try next time, what you wouldn't like to try next time. All those things need to happen. So communication, is key to the play component. And of course, we have consent. We can't forget about consent. Every single one of these prioritizes consent. So within the four C's, consent, is using the Fry's model. It's there, it's consented. So it's a part of this as well. And the final C is caution. And caution comes in because everybody involved understands that what activities you're going to be engaging with do come with risk, and you are going to use caution to mitigate those risks. So those are the four C's, which even though it's something that typically is seen in the MS dynamic, it is something that really can be applied across the board, even even for people that are just um, engaging in the fun of DS play and aren't really doing the whole lifestyle thing. So the four C's can be used in a lot of different ways, and it's perfectly fine to use the four C's even if you're not into the master slave dynamic. That's not your jam, but you can still definitely take advantage and use to your advantage the four C's. So it's important to find what works for you, what doesn't work for you, uh, and it's okay if you're newer to have theories of what you think would work for you and what you think would not work for you. Don't also feel like you have to be locked in fully to one approach. You can take and blend the four C's with safe, sane, consensual. You can make it your own, which is one of the beautiful things about DS is that you can take from here, borrow from there, and create your own set of guidelines, what works for you. There isn't a right or wrong way, it's what works for each person. It's also important to remember that if somebody does practice the lifestyle differently, as long as they are really not doing something, insane, dangerous, as long as the consent portion is being prioritized, the safety part is addressed, don't vilify somebody if you support, say you support R.A.C.K, and you shouldn't vilify somebody who is a prick. And if you're a prick, you shouldn't vilify somebody who does S.S.C. Every person does what works for them. And just because the method that you practice works for you, we really don't need to be putting people down who do things differently. It's sadly that happens often. So make sure that you find what works for you. Know that it doesn't have to be something that you're locked into. You can create your own. It's sort of like those choose your own adventure books or books where they are multiple endings and you make decisions as you read them. Um, that's the great thing about these different manners is you can take bits and pieces and do your own thing as long as you're prioritizing safety and consent. And it is always, no matter how you practice the lifestyle, it truly is up to you to keep yourself safe. Yes, you can have an amazing partner who loves you immensely and that you trust completely, but it's still your responsibility to make sure that you stay safe. It's no one else's responsibility but yours. I guess maybe that makes me a prick for saying that, but it is truly how it needs to be. If you don't, there's no one else that's going to look out for you as yourself. I mean, that's just how life works. It's up to each of us whether we're walking down the street or playing in the world of DS. We all have to keep each other safe, and it all starts with personal responsibility that we make safe, good choices. So, my question is, uh, what what manner do you use, or if you're new, which one sort of kind of maybe finds a home in your mind that you think would be best for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Just to let everyone know, a little feature has gone live with this podcast. Is at the bottom of every episode description across the board, wherever you get your podcast, there will be a link where you can send me voice feedback. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as to which approach works for you and why. And also, if you do happen to listen through Spotify, and on your listening and you're on the mobile app, um, I now have the ability and will be using it to put poll questions up with each podcast. So if you are listening and you're using the Spotify app on your phone, go ahead, answer the poll. Let me know where you stand on this. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your ideas, your feedback, and also, if you haven't already, please feel free to follow my podcast wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll get notified whenever there's a new episode of Chatting with a Lightkeeper up. So, on that note, I want to wish everyone a safe, sane, and consensually amazing holiday season. And since this will be probably the last podcast for the year, I want to wish everyone a happy new year and an amazing 2023. Boy, it's hard to say that one. It doesn't seem like it should be 2023 yet, but it is almost. So let's have a great holidays and a happy new year. And I will talk to you next year.